Hey guys, Chris here with the 2018 Volvo V90. I've had this car for a week and I wanted to give some impressions and thoughts on what it's like to live with after a few days. There are some things that I really love about this V90, and there are some things that I'm not so crazy about. First of all, let's start off with the looks. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. It's probably the best looking wagon Volvo's ever made. It's maybe the best looking wagon on sale today. It is absolutely stunning. I love this color. I love the R design package. You really can't go wrong with this. Of course, being a wagon, you've got a ton of space in the back. You've got a nice panel that folds up here to keep cargo from rolling around. Really handy for putting groceries back here, stuff like that. A little bit more space underneath. And of course, a spare tire underneath that. You can fold down the rear seats at the push of a button. Pretty useful. And that gives you a ton of cargo space. Look at that. You can really fit a lot in there. Let's go in the back seat. One thing I do love about this, the chassis based on the V90 and the XC90 and all of those, and the V90 Cross Country, is that you do get a ton of room in the back. Finally, a Volvo with some leg room. It's not massive, but it's more than enough, and it feels really premium back here. The seats are incredibly comfortable. There's a little feature where you can flip this up, and I assume it's for a car seat. I don't really know. I don't have kids yet. I'm sure it is for a car seat, actually. That's pretty handy for families. And you've got a nice center armrest, cup holders that come out, a little storage tray in here to put things, nice space to put your phone, little cargo nets, and of course a little privacy screen back here as well. This gorgeous carbon fiber inlay in the door panel. It is absolutely stunning in here. A gorgeous interior, and of course rear climate control, stuff like that. Let's hop in the front and start this up so we can see some of the infotainment and displays. Cameras all around this thing. The start button used to kind of weird me out a little bit. I felt like it should be turn this way to turn on, turn that way to turn off, but you get used to it very easily. More carbon fiber up here. It's really nice. So is the wood inlay as well. You really can't go wrong with either one. Again, same deal with the front seat. Incredible comfort up here. You've got this cool little Swedish flag on the side. And then, of course, this massive sunroof. These don't slide, but they have pretty good coverage. And, of course, nice LED interior lights. All that stuff. Let's take it for a drive. I also love these silver mirrors. They have a really nice contrast with the blue exterior. Reverse camera, you've got a bunch of different options. So you've just got a nice reverse camera to begin with turning lines. You can go to a 360 view here, and then you can select different sides, stuff like that. It's a little bit delayed, a little bit tedious to get through some of these, and there's a lot of distortion. It's difficult to judge your distances sometimes when you're using this reverse camera. It's usable, it works. Luckily, visibility when backing up and through the mirrors is very good. So it's not that big of a deal, but just a complaint that there is a ton of distortion from this lens. steering is super light at low speeds. And of course, this is the same powertrain as in all the other T6 variants that Volvo has. Turbocharged and supercharged inline 4-cylinder with 316 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. I will say, from a performance perspective, this car is a powerhouse. The handling is amazing. The ride quality is very good. You can hear stop-start going there. Sometimes it's a little bit jerky, but compared to everything else that I drive, it's pretty good. It's not a bad system at all. One complaint I do have, so ride quality on this Volvo is fantastic. The air suspension in the back is very nice, very comfortable, very supple. My only complaint is over potholes. You get just a little bit more noise and cabin intrusion, NVH, than you would like, especially for a vehicle that's $70,000 or as near as. There's just a little bit of noise over bumps. I'd like to have just a little bit more isolation in such a luxurious and otherwise amazingly finished car. So getting onto the highway, I've been using Pilot Assist pretty regularly in this car this week. It's a fantastic system. It works really, really well. And, I find myself using the steering control quite often. It's a really, really good setup. And so far, I haven't had any issues with it except for when, let's say, if you're driving and a lane will split off to do a U-turn, or a lane will split off to exit. Sometimes the car will follow that split. So you just have to kind of be aware and pay attention to what you're doing. But I found it very comfortable. Just kind of rest your hand on the wheel, let the car do the steering. It does a really nice job keeping you centered in the lane. And it's just incredibly easy to turn on, turn off, set to the speed that you want to go, and use in the real world. It's a fantastic system. Let's put it into dynamic here. One thing about this V90 is that it has an insane amount of mechanical grip. It is absolutely awesome. Pretty neutral handling, and way more grip than you'd ever need. It's pretty fun to drive around the twisties. That rear air suspension definitely has some tweaks and stiffens up a little bit under dynamic mode. And you can hear the revs a little bit higher. Pretty standard stuff. Nice quick shifts from this transmission too. And, yes, it's a 4-cylinder, but that's kind of the way things are going these days. I do like the character of this engine. When you really get into the high revs, you just hear a bunch of boost. And then the low revs, sometimes you can hear just a tad bit of supercharger whine, which is kind of fun. I was able to pretty easily match the highway fuel economy numbers. I believe this is 31 highway, 22 city. Maybe wrong on that, but I've gotten pretty decent gas mileage in this week. And thanks in part to this being just a little bit more aerodynamic as a wagon as opposed to an SUV, it's been pretty easy to match the fuel economy numbers, which is nice. Riding on the highway, there's not a lot of wind noise. It's pretty quiet. Really, the only NVH complaint I have is over bumps and rougher roads. And actually, just for fun, let's go over one and you guys can kind of hear what I mean. Paddle shifters on behind the steering wheel. This is a traditional torque converting automatic. It's not that responsive. Gives you a little bit of a blip, but there's quite a bit of delay. This 8-speed is really good at giving you the gear you want, but it works best in automatic mode, and that's fine. Let's talk a little bit about the infotainment. So once you get used to this, I think it's a good system. I wish it were a little bit faster and a little bit more responsive. Sometimes there are some screens that stay up a little bit too long, menus that are just not quite intuitive to access. My biggest complaint with the infotainment is just changing the climate control settings. So since this is a kind of a manual fan auto climate control system, if you get in the car and it's really hot or really cold, you're going to want to have to change that. And it's a little bit tough to change on the fly. It takes a little bit more effort to look down. I would really prefer some redundancy. They've got some radio controls down here, but really nothing to use the climate control immediately. There are some cool features throughout where you can kind of create some shortcuts and stuff like that. But really, it's a system that takes some getting used to, and it's not perfect. Alright, so we're about to go down a really bumpy road here. We're not going to do it for too long, but this will give you kind of an idea of the NVH. It's just a little bit crashy over bumps. And if you roll the windows down, I don't know if it's this press car particularly, it has 9,600 hard-driven press low in miles, but you can hear there's just a little bit of rattling and noise from the air suspension in the front and the back. Well, just the air suspension in the back, but the suspension's just a little bit noisy. And otherwise, the car, I mean, the ride quality is great. It does feel like you're riding on massive wheels, and maybe some of the noise is in part due to that. See what I mean? It's just loud. This isn't a new thing for Volvo. This has kind of been a problem on their previous vehicles as well. It's just something that I've noticed. It seems like there's just some issues isolating bumps and noise throughout the chassis. Alright, let's go up here and park this and show you around a little bit more. Wrap this review up. Overall, this is a really nice car. It's not perfect. It definitely has some flaws. It's first and foremost, it's absolutely stunning, and it drives pretty well. From a performance standpoint, it's really fun. It's really quite capable. If you can get past the fact that this is a 4-cylinder, it's great. And I don't even mind the engine. Where you're really getting your money's worth is just in the way everything is finished and appointed in the cabin. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's very safe. The pilot assist works incredibly well. It's a really, really nice system. Volvo's done a good job putting all of that together and really making this a safe car to drive. And if anything, I would say it's necessary, especially with the amount of involvement that the infotainment and controls require from the driver. So it's just nice to be able to set that, trust it 99% of the time, and do what you need to do over here. Sound system's great. Fortunately, I can't really show you that over YouTube in a video, but something you'd have to experience on your own. I'd recommend just going to a dealership and check it out. One thing to note, I went through a car wash earlier today and it completely ripped off the rear wiper. Not sure if that's a design thing or just a thing specific to that car wash. Something to note if you're an owner, just be careful. Other than that, what a great car. I think I'm so glad that Volvo is making wagons and making them cool. This is definitely one of the best looking and coolest looking wagons I've ever seen. The headlights are beautiful, just all of these cool little design cues throughout the car. And it's pretty good. I would say, this is kind of a 90% car. It's not perfect. There are some flaws, but it's it's good. It has some things that kind of could make up for that. And it's up to you as the buyer to see if you're willing to kind of make up for some of those shortcomings. I think it'd be a fantastic family car, really spacious, really practical, pretty fuel efficient. And I mean, just look at it. It's an emotional design. It's absolutely stunning. So I don't think I really have anything new to say in the review field about this car. It's pretty much all been said. But wanted to show you guys what it's like to drive. Probably the biggest thing that impressed me was just the handling and the capability of this around the corners. It's a really capable chassis, and it was nice to have an opportunity to kind of push it a little bit and see what it can do in wagon form. Cool. All right, guys, that's it for this one. We'll see you later. Take care.